So I'm sitting in my office and my wife calls me. It's early in the morning. It's 9/11. And she says, you got to start watching the news. And so I turned the news on quickly and I couldn't believe what I saw. It's like, this isn't real. And it was real. And so I flew home as quickly as I could and I'm watching this and I'm thinking, I can't sit here. I'm only 2 hours from New York City and I got to get there. We got there and we started serving under the umbrella of the Salvation Army. And I was sitting at the table from 7 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. These were long hours and I'm sitting literally across the table from the wife of the person who lost her husband in that horrible situation. And family after family after family. And you listen to their stories and their real stories and they just break your heart. And the smells were horrific. Those smells still permeate my mind. And I would walk to the pile and there I would get the chance to work with the firemen and the iron workers. If a body part was found, no bodies were ever found. It was just such a horrific thing. But we would identify that as a full body and we would take it to the morgue. And we would just serve as hard as we could. And my heart was becoming attached to crisis, to catastrophe, but more importantly to the people who were affected by it. Later on, Katrina was a part of our news and we were all watching that story unfold before our eyes and I had been trained now. I had switched organizations and I was now a trained person with the Red Cross to go into these crises and catastrophes and they called me and asked if I could go and so they flew me into Houston. I drove into Baton Rouge, the center of the headquarters for the Red Cross operation, and I could have done anything. And yet I heard somebody calling for leadership in Shreveport. And so I arrive and I knock on the door and this little old woman said, oh honey, nobody's here right now. And so I went to a motel and I came back early the next morning and the same lady was there and I reintroduced myself and she says, oh, I know who you are. I've talked to Reed, the director of the Red Cross there, and we think you're the person to help us lead this operation. I said, okay, and I didn't know what that meant. And for the next 3 weeks, I would have the opportunity to lead 10 counties, 8 large shelters the size of Louisiana State University. And now my heart is totally attached to crisis and catastrophe. And so now the earthquake hits in Haiti. And I knew I needed to be there and it would be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I went to Haiti and I saw these people devastated, already the most impoverished country in the Western Hemisphere. And then to be devastated, 250,000 lives in just a second, dump trucked into a mass pit, a mass grave. And to see that grave, and then to see the faces of these people who were desperate, who were poverty-stricken, poverty all over their hearts. And I'm not talking about the absence of things. I'm talking about hopelessness. I'm talking about isolation. Nobody cares about us. And my heart was totally attached. I'll never forget standing on a mountain now that the mayor has given to us. It's the CPR-3 mountain. And the Lord gave me this picture that was from the prophet Ezekiel chapter 37, where it's just a valley full of dead bones, and these dead bones couldn't come to life. And yet the Lord takes Ezekiel up to this mountain. He says, Ezekiel, can these dead bones live? And the obvious answer is no, these dead bones can't live. They're dead. And as I look over all of Haiti, and you could see all the way into Port-au-Prince from this mountain, all I saw were 10 million people whose lives had not been touched for the good news, for the sake of the gospel. And I wanted them to know the good news, that there is hope beyond what they were experiencing. My resignation letter to the church I started was in the next month. And then 3 months later, I resigned as the pastor. I left and I started CPR-3. CPR, breathing life and hope into the world. The 3, relief, rehabilitation, and development. Perhaps the most important thing that we do is partnership. We love engaging with people who care about these kinds of things. I want to be there in the face of a crisis, in the face of catastrophe. I want to be involved in helping people who've been unfortunately born into poverty, to a country like Haiti. I want to be there. I want to engage. If that's you, there's a place where you can give back, where you can breathe out that which God has breathed into your life. He's given you life, and He didn't give you life just so you can suck it up. He gave it so that you could give it out. If you just breathe in and never breathe out, if you never give it away, then that's a problem. You are created to breathe life. CPR-3.com is loaded with resources to help you engage in the battle against crisis, catastrophe, and extreme poverty. What can you do to take the next step?